Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's Friday night and you know what to do. It's time to sit back and relax, and we'll do all of the judging because, quite frankly, that's what we like to do. There's been an awful lot of planks this week and I've got a fantastic panel with which to help me choose who's going to be the winner. Kevin O'Sullivan is here, Laura Dodsworth has joined us, MacLeod is visiting from Scotland, and Georgie Frost as well, of course, is here too. And here's what we're going to be playing for. It is, of course, the Plank of the Week. Right, Kevin, you can kick us off with, I think I know who might be the winner already.
Deep breath.
It's a fix.
It's Holly Willoughby.
Yeah.
Deep breath.
Are you okay?
Deep breath. Are you okay?
Are you?
By the way, when she made this epoch-making speech on this morning, on Monday morning, did you notice she screwed up the opening line?
Yes.
No one's criticised her enough that she went, "Are you okay?"
Right.
She meant, "Are you okay?" And yeah, we're fine, Holly.
Well, she might have been a bit nervous.
It's just a TV show. We're not that bothered. However...
No, it's not. It's a family.
It's a family.
It's a family.
Exactly. Now, that speech was one of the most ruthless things I've ever seen. You know, the smiling assassin. Oh, Phil. She mentioned Phil perfunctorily once.
Yes, right.
Right at the beginning of the speech, and thereafter, bizarrely, strangely, acted as if he's gone non-binary.
Yeah.
And started calling him they and them. They are so upset. Their mental health has been affected. They've lost the career they loved. It was bizarre.
It was odd. Shall we have a look at it? Let's have a look at it.
You, me and all of us at this morning gave our love and support to someone who was not telling the truth, who acted in a way that they themselves felt that they had to resign from ITV and step down from a career that they loved. That is a lot to process.
All we can do now is be the family that we are.
Exactly,
You know?
exactly.
All we can do now is be the family that we are.
There we are.
No, you're not a family.
Right.
You're a nest of vipers. It's a poisonous programme. It's the worst place in the world to work. Stop pretending you're all happy, smiley. This is why they... I've been doing this all week.
I think you need a hug, Kevin. I think you might need a hug.
No, yeah, I need a hug. All we can do now is be the family that we are. That's Josie Gibson. She's from Bristol.
Yeah, but she's nice. Don't be mean about Josie. She's nice.
Shut up.
Yes, she is.
How many possible people do you think they put in that chair before they picked her? Because
well,
presumably
they
would have
picked her because she's...
a long conversation. Yeah. I didn't know who she was, to be
But
honest.
Holly, well, she won Big Brother.
I still don't know who she is.
She won Big Brother some years ago. And, you know, Holly said, "Thank you so much for being here." She's there because she's a paid television presenter. She's there because she's getting money. She didn't come in to support you, Holly. And Holly's strange, detached, soulless speech lost... This morning, 200,000 viewers.
There's a lot of people tuned in to watch it.
You know,
right?
I said...
And then as soon as she said what she said, they switched it off.
Yeah,
because,
had she have got the speech right, it might have worked. But the speech was entirely wrong, and apparently she wrote it herself.
Well, you can tell that.
And then it was approved by bosses. Now, the bosses should have said, "Nice try, Holly. Now we'll do it properly."
Yeah.
That was a disaster, and I don't think she can last. And one last point about this morning, as I tweeted yesterday, and it's had about 1.2 million views. It's this: if all that Philip Schofield did was have an extramarital affair and then lie about it in the office, why is Holly Willoughby and ITV treating him like a serial killer? If there's something more sinister to this story, why are we not being told? I think there's a lot still to come out in the wash, and I think this morning is finished.
Very, very possibly so. And also, we've got soon to look forward to Carolyn... What's her face?
Dame Carolyn McCall.
Dame Carolyn McCall being up before the beak, as it were.
Well, twice.
She's going to be talking to the parliamentary committee, isn't she? The media committee about safeguarding issues. Yeah. Also, it's been said, I think, by one of the contestants from Britain's Got Talent that she didn't actually investigate on previous occasions things that she was asked to investigate. So she's in a bad place as well.
And think about this, at ITV, because it's ITV, they should change the name to I Know Nothing TV. You know, Dame Carolyn McCall knew nothing of Philip Schofield's affair. His best friend, Holly Willoughby, knew nothing of this affair. Martin Frizzell, the editor of This Morning, knew nothing of this. Nobody knew anything of this affair. Well, I did. 3 years ago I knew about it. You know, how come I don't even work there?
Yeah.
How come they don't know?
But when you say that, people always then ask, well, why didn't you write about it? Why didn't you say anything? And the reason is
I thought it was too boring.
Well, no, because ITV told people it wasn't true. And basically, if you knew that was true,
exactly right,
you couldn't prove it, therefore you couldn't say it. So, fascinating. Well, they've won last 2 weeks in a row, because we had ITV winning it 2 weeks ago. We had Philip Schofield winning it last week. I wonder if Holly Willoughby can make it
the crux of it is
a
just
triple.
this, Mike. One last point about that.
I thought the last point was the last point.
No, I've got
How many
one
last
last.
points have you got?
I don't believe her.
Oh,
I don't believe
Don't
her.
let this win, please.
No.
It's
I don't
awful.
believe her.
Well,
I
I'll
don't
tell you
believe
what,
any of them.
it's up to the rest of you to get a better one than that. So, Laura, what's
All right,
yours?
let's try. I'm going to nominate Glamour magazine because they have produced a quite astonishing front cover for Pride Month. On the front, they have a pregnant woman who is a transgender man.
Yes.
The point I'd make about this is, first of all, it's called Glamour magazine, and no disrespect, because pregnancy is beautiful, but this is not glamorous. It's not why I ever used to buy women's magazines. Also, it's a woman's magazine, and I just don't know what kind of message
Is
that
it now,
gives
though?
to
Don't
women
have to call
and
it something
young
else.
women.
Is it? Can you have a women's magazine now?
God knows what it identifies as. But maybe it's not even a magazine. It's propaganda. It's non-binary propaganda or something. But in all seriousness, Glamour's joined the ranks of the enemies of sanity and common sense because this is a complete inversion of what we know to be true. Yeah. When you're pregnant, it's kind of the ultimate symbol that you have a woman's body. You know, you're a woman and a mother. And then there's another point about this, which is something we're almost not supposed to say, but when I look at that picture, I honestly feel a little bit sad for the baby because the most important ingredient in a family is love. End of story. That's the most important thing. But also having a grip on reality is important. And this is a very distorted view of reality. So this baby's going to grow up with people claiming to be the opposite sex. And I think there's something a bit sad about that.
the baby's father, presumably, would it?
I don't know. I mean, goodness knows what she'll call herself.
Maybe the father and the mother.
Herself a mother and a father. Of course, legally, she can't be a father on the birth certificate. That's already been tried and tested, a case like that. So I think it sends a really disturbing message. And I think people are a bit fed up, to be honest, with having this kind of thing.
Well, it feels a bit forced
as
well, doesn't it? But luckily, there is a little clip I can show you which explains it all.
I'm Precious. This is my husband, Miles, and he's pregnant.
Popped, the masculine version of pregnant.
We're having a baby. Miles and I are a trans family. I identify as a trans woman, and Miles identifies as a trans man.
So there you are.
It's kind of a bit mad. It's all really upside down. It's not real.
Why glamour? I mean, who's spoken about glamour since, well, I can't remember, 14 years old, I think, the last time.
Yeah.
Now everybody's talking about it.
I didn't even know it was going
So
still.
it's a bit like what everybody's using Pride for, which used to be a celebration of LGBT plus community. Right. So don't.
But this is it. But
now it's being used by businesses to sell their products, by charities to look like they're doing good things, and by magazines to get into the media to be seen as relevant.
And yet, if there wasn't a market for it, it wouldn't be there.
Well, there is a market for it, but there's also, I think there's
a
diminishing market for it, as we saw with Bud Light. I mean, they didn't make it into the list this week, but there was more bad news for Bud Light because I think their share price has fallen even further, and people are just not buying the beer anymore. And it is go broke.
There's a difference between talking about glamour and buying glamour. I feel no more likely to buy Glamour magazine this month than I was last month. In fact, a lot less. And I used to actually buy glamour years ago. I used to buy it.
But lots of people will be clicking on that online. Lots of people will be, because it is a shocking image. It is a surprising image to see.
You made a very good point there. This should be about the baby.
Yeah.
The baby's health. It's all about the baby.
Yeah.
And that's all that should be considered here. Really, I don't care about the mother, father, whoever they are. The baby's health is important. I think the baby could be damaged.
Yeah.
With the amount of testosterone that's getting thrown into the body there. They've got to look after the baby's health. They've got to be careful that nothing happens to that baby. And, in the process. And to me, it's, as long as they're happy,
That's the main thing.
It's a good point.
And you know, that's it. As long as I don't care, but as long I would care that
If I was editing that
with the baby.
magazine, I wouldn't be entirely disappointed with that cover because it is eye-catching. I'm with Georgie on this, but it is just wokery gone crazy, isn't it? Just wokery gone mad.
When I was pregnant, you weren't supposed to eat blue cheese, have a paracetamol, have antibiotics, whole list of things. But now apparently you can be swimming in testosterone.
Yeah.
Goodness knows what effect it's going to have on the baby. The thing I'm a bit more worried about is the message it sends, not just to the baby in that family, who I'm sure we brought up in love. I bear them no ill will. But this general message in society that you can swap sex when quite patently you can't. The only sex capable of being pregnant giving birth is the female sex.
It's a woman.
It's a woman.
Yeah. Shouldn't be difficult, really. Donald, what you got for us?
Well, last week, sadly, Glasgow became the first city in Scotland to introduce a low emission zone, an LEZ, a low economy zone, I call it.
Right.
Or, well, I suppose, a low economy zone, which basically means if you've got a car, diesel of 2016 or below, you're not allowed into Glasgow city centre without paying a fine. And similarly with a car, I think it's 2006 petrol, without paying a fine. That's 100,000 vehicles.
And there'll be plenty of
Glasgow.
people with cars that are that old.
Yeah, well, there's 100,000, I reckon, in the Glasgow area, 700,000 in Scotland, 10.3 million in Britain are now excluded from Glasgow unless you want to pay a £60 fine, unlike in London, which is you'll pay a fee to come in. Oh no, we went battering. We had to be different. We had to go 1 year ahead of everybody else. But more importantly, we had to not look at the evidence that was there that said the air pollution reports that said the air is clean.
Right. We've been talking about, obviously, ultra-low emission zones in London for a long time, and we would always say to anyone listening, don't think this is just a London-centric story, because it's going to come to you. And it has come to Newcastle, for example, where a lot of taxi drivers have told me they just don't go in to the centre anymore, and the same thing will happen in Glasgow.
Yeah, well, it could be a large exclusion zone. That's what they're basically...
And who's asking for this anyway? Who's asking for it?
Nobody is asking for it except the SNP Green government or the SNP Green Council. And they're forcing it through after it's been proved that stage one, which was electrifying the buses, worked. Cleaned the streets. The air pollution targets are getting met, yet they're still bringing this through.
Also, forgive me for pointing out that in the centre of Glasgow, there's a thing called the M8, which is a 6 or 8 lane motorway, which runs right through the centre of Glasgow. So you can do whatever you like around it, but isn't that going to be full of emissions anyway?
Well, what they're finding out now, towards the edge of the zone where the M8 is, there's pollution has started to rise. Guess what? They're already talking about extending the zone further. This is before they've even looked at the data.
Into the Highlands of Scotland.
Yeah, well, basically, actually, a lot of the supply trucks that failed are now getting moved up to the Highlands of Scotland. But the thing is, it's empty in the city centre.
Georgie, what you got for us?
Yeah, I've got Amazon.
Amazon?
For you. Yeah, it's been.
We haven't had them for a while.
It's been quite a week. It started, I think, reasonably well. They offered parents and grandparents term time working rather than pay their striking workers more, but let's ignore that part. Then they had to they paid a settlement for about £20 million for online child privacy violations with Alexa and also with Ring, their in-house doorbell service and cameras. My favourite story of that was they gave unfettered access basically to their workers, and one of them was found to be watching thousands of hours of women in their own bathrooms and bedrooms before someone complained about it.
This passed me by.
Note that they didn't admit guilt on that. They settled, so they're not guilty for that. They just settled, so they can move on. But that 20 million was more than they paid in corporation tax, which was nada. Nothing. For the second year in a row, due to tax breaks from Rishi Sunak, they will say that it's only their UK services division, and actually there were other taxes, direct taxes that they paid around about 750 million. They had sales of 24 billion. Most of us here will be paying 20, 40, 45% tax. That works out.
How do they get away with it?
Tax.
How can I get away with it?
They get away with it because governments allow them. Boris Johnson had a meeting with founder Jeff Bezos 2 years ago and said pay more tax. Jeff Bezos says, look, we just comply with what governments tell us to do. So unless the governments get their acts in order, unless we have some global tax system, which they're looking at, we are going to be in this situation where a massive corporation like Amazon can get away with no corporation tax, and little businesses like me have their accountant breathing down their neck to make sure I have every expense on my thing.
You used to have a big business. I don't know how much smaller it is now since COVID happened. But I mean, we've all got little companies, and you try telling the tax man that you're not paying any corporation tax.
Well, in Scotland, we pay more tax now. So
do you?
It's going up. Again, I think we pay 2p more on the basic rate than the rest of the UK for the privilege of getting totally ripped off by LEZ zones and the like.
Yeah, but you can do that for less money because we get it for 2% less.
In the end, though, I mean, you can't really blame Amazon or the big companies or even individuals. I mean, our job is to pay as little tax as possible. And if
I get that. If we can't get away with it, though.
If you have a government stupid enough to allow Amazon to get away with it, it's the stupid government that should be the plank. Amazon's just acting like a corporation.
They've been allowing them to pay less tax for years. But then 2 years ago, Rishi Sunak introduced these tax breaks for companies related to whether they spend money on infrastructure, and if they do that, they can get tax breaks, very generous ones, and Amazon have benefited. So they've been adding robotics into their plants, presumably going to get rid of jobs, people's jobs. Right. So the government are basically paying for the loss of people's jobs. Yeah. And they are other sort of factories that they're developing as well. But they would have done this anyway. So this excuse that if we make them pay the right amount of tax, they're going to leave. There are 60 billion e-commerce users in this country. We're one of the richest countries in the world. Amazon are not going to turn tail and run if we decide to get a bit of tax out of them.
The other thing we should be taxing them on is driving, because there's so many Amazon trucks on the road all the time. People have forgotten. People go, oh, there's terrible traffic everywhere. Well, there's a reason for that, because people are ordering loads of stuff on Amazon and getting it delivered to their house. And there must be at any given time
that's great,
about 50,000. Yeah, but there's an effect.
I love Amazon. I think they're a great company.
There's a cause and effect, though, isn't there? Because it means that, you can't go in.
Depends where they leave your parcels.
Yeah.
Well, it's true,
Not good for the green.
At times I don't like them when I can't find my parcels.
Are they green trucks?
Exactly.
We don't know.
Well, this is the thing, and the point is that there must be something. I mean, somebody said to me once there's about 30,000 Ubers driving around London at any given time. No wonder there's can't go anywhere. Imagine how many Amazon trucks there are driving around Britain.
That's about delivering vitals. Good. Amazon was the hero of the COVID crisis.
Well, you should be going to the shops and buying things in person.
No, I don't want to. I'll get Amazon to bring me what I need. Why do I want?
Do they use the bikes?
Why are you going to make me go to the shops? I don't want to.
Well, you know what they started.
Or do they use the drones?
They've started to use in some parts. They've trialled it. There's these little mini sort of things on wheels, right? Yeah. And you open it. I don't know what you're supposed to do.
Little trolley, like
it's like a
banana had.
Yeah, it's like a little drone on wheels. It drives up to your but it drives up to your front door, and you're supposed to somehow open it, take the thing out, and it goes away.
Did you see that?
Seems like a really stupid idea.
They're going to learn how to ride them. They're going to learn how to ride them. They'll replace e-scooters.
Yeah.
Did you see that the Amazon drivers the other week that they were delivering a big, massive flat-screen TV and they couldn't work out where to leave it because there was no one in. So they went round the back of the house and chucked it over the garden fence, and it just smashed the bits.
Brilliant, excellent. Well, listen, I mean that's a pretty good start. Yeah, we haven't got any drones for you as yet, but coming up, we're going to be talking about some migrant protests. We might have a mention of a former Prime Minister, and of course, you know what I mean about the man who likes to be known as Your Royal Highness. This is Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We've already had some pretty good nominations, and I'm afraid I'm going to try and trump all of them with the man who has been at the heart of everything this week. I mean, you thought Holly Willoughby was the big name this week, but how about His Royal Highness, the Prince Harry? Because he's not sure which one of those names he prefers. This is a man, of course, who has been in High Court for all week, mostly. As you see him going in for the, I think, second day's hearings. He basically said, there's a cartoon of him, he was asked what he would like to be referred to as, and would he be OK with Your Royal Highness? And then he answered, no, Prince Harry would be fine. This is a guy who says he doesn't want to be in the royal family, but you have to call him Prince Harry. Or Your Royal Highness, which he said he would never use, apparently. Yeah,
you have to kick off with that.
Yeah.
And then
he then sort of went through a litany of hours and hours and hours on the stand, being questioned by Mirror Group newspaper's chief barrister, Mr. Green,
Andrew Green,
KC, who's known as the Beast. And at times it was tetchy, at times it was really weird. at times he was claiming things that he didn't apparently know the answers to. And when he was asked, are you sure that this might have happened? He went, well, I don't know. You'll have to ask the journalists how they got the story. And he seems to have basically decided that every story that was ever written about him was the subject of something illegal, which he can't prove. Yeah, and you wonder, after all of the time that we spent watching it and listening to what he had to say and seeing his statement, which I think was 55 pages long, in which he made all sorts of allegations, you have to wonder why he's doing it and what his plan is. I mean, he says he wants to completely revolutionise the media business. Well, thanks anyway, Prince Harry, but I mean, I don't really think that's your job. He also had a go at the government, said that they were rock bottom, which is pretty good coming from a guy who was born into the royal family, who has never been elected to serve any office at all. But he's sort of become the high priest of the woke now, hasn't he? Because the people that are defending him are all the people that say, oh, well, you just don't like him because he's married to a black woman, which is complete and utter rubbish.
Well, yeah, this is like an episode of Blackadder, a modern day. You know,
right.
Your Highness, Your Highness, Your Highness, Your
Royal Highness. Well, it's a bit like when he went to New York, for that near catastrophic, car chase that was done at about 10 miles
an hour. The low speed catastrophic car chase.
When the paparazzi agency went, well, you might think because you're the king, you can order people around and we get made to give you things. That's not how it works in America, so get lost. Yeah. And, the two major incidents that he talks about, one involved his mother, of course, in France, the other involved him and his wife in New York, but he's coming after the British press who had nothing to do with either incident.
But he's talking about things that he has no idea about. First of all, he used the court to lecture us about democracy. Last time I looked, the royal family weren't exactly central to the democratic equation, so I'm not sure he knows much about that. Then, for me, and you'll know about this, Mike, the most shocking moment was when he started describing and explaining what happens in newsrooms, in newspaper newsrooms. Now, I don't know much, but I know what happens in newspaper newsrooms. Yeah. He said that journalists get together and they work out traits, right? What is it about Harry? Right, he's a drinker, he's thick, he's entitled, he's a drug taker. And then once they've worked that out, they zone in and they use illegal methods to ruin his life. That does not happen.
No,
it does it, Mike?
Does it? Well,
also,
come down to the newsroom.
Most of the stories that he's referring to, many of them had, PR fingerprints all over them, like it was a statement from the palace. Oh. Was it? Oh, sorry. I thought somebody had somehow...
Well, the best one was his interview.
Yeah. He'd actually given an interview.
My phone was hacked for this. And it turns out it was an interview he gave to a journalist.
Mm. And he doesn't seem to have any clue about how the business of being a member of the royal family works, because he talks as though he's the only person that's ever been followed, who's ever had his picture taken, who's ever been doorstepped, who's ever had, guys on motorbikes chasing him down the street. It's happened to his brother, who also had a terrible time when his mother died. It's happened to, everybody else in the family.
He's been called thick, apparently.
Apparently so. But that's presumably because he is.
I think that's because he is thick. But that's because he is thick.
Nefarious practices aren't right? So the illegality is not right. But the issue about privacy, have you read Spare, his book? It is like sitting on a therapist's couch with him. Yeah. It's so...
And he had no problem.
There's too much of his personal life in there. So here's a man fighting for privacy who's just telling the whole world everything.
Have you all read that?
I haven't read it.
I haven't read it.
No.
It's actually quite sad at times, frustrating.
I think he's a bit of a tragic figure.
Oh, he is.
You can see that he's desperate for something. He says this is his life's work to sort of change the media, right? But actually what he's really looking for is something to occupy his life, because he's not happy. He's got 2 kids that he should be spending all of his time with instead of being in Britain in courtrooms, which he seems to like to spend an awful lot of time in. And he just seems to be a very unfulfilled, unhappy guy. And when he said, if you want to know about his privilege, he went, I was worried nobody would want to speak to me when I was at Eton. And you go, Eton. That's where you were.
Eton, where he's regularly bottom of the class. And when you talk about the illegality being wrong, Georgie, of course, you're exactly right. That is wrong. Using illegal methods to get stories is wrong. There are lots of other methods that journalists use to get stories, none of them illegal. The point about his charge, that the newspapers used serially illegal methods to get stories on, he can't prove it.
No.
He's got no evidence.
Well, he just wants it to be true.
He just wants it to be true, like he wants journalists to sit around working out his traits so they can... He wants this. He creates these images in his mind and then decides they're true. bad luck, mate. They're not true.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly right.
the more-
Anyway,
It's
the
illuminating.
more people find themselves with this American-style therapy,
Yeah.
the more lost they are. He's
Yeah.
very paranoid. He's very lost. So, in a sense, I actually feel sorry for him because I think it's almost like he's brainwashed by this
Right.
kind of American style of therapy.
And he keeps trying to
But the
convince
other-
us and himself that he's happier than he's ever been. Doesn't look like it.
He does need help. He needs help.
There are some serious issues with press freedom in journalism. If he wants to shake up journalism, why could he not use his platform to speak out about Assange?
Exactly.
You know, there's a lot of other things he
There
could
are.
be doing with his platform.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, he doesn't know about
Probably
that.
never heard of it.
Yeah, he's never been followed by him. Right, so what's your next one?
Mine is the migrant Pimlico protesters. These are the migrants who were being billeted in a very nice hotel that they rather liked in Ilford in Essex.
Yes.
Big rooms, great Wi-Fi, lovely
Decent
food.
garden.
They got moved recently. Most of them have been here for 2 years, but they got moved recently to Pimlico. Londoners will know Pimlico is one of London's most exclusive areas where properties, houses can easily fetch 15 and 20 million pounds, and they were moved into the Comfort Inn Hotel, only 3-star, which is in itself
Shocking.
scandal.
Absolutely
Scandal. 3-star.
I mean, what were they thinking?
It's only 5-star.
Yeah.
3-star, £150.
What a refund.
£150 a night, and they liked the food there. That was the good news. But the rooms were much smaller, and they didn't like the size of the bathrooms. They were miles too small, and worst of all, the Wi-Fi was really inefficient. So,
I mean, some of them apparently weren't able to watch the last episode of Succession.
Exactly
They were
right.
really
Exactly right. What kind of hell? What kind of fresh hell is this? So they staged this furious protest about the standard of the hotel, the Wi-Fi, the standard of the rooms. Apparently, there was a nasty.
I think I'll
standard
do
in the
that with the
corridor.
Hilton.
But it's like so I said. So these people have been here 2 years. We've paid for them every single night in their hotels, £150, £200. We pay for all their food. Free food they get, and we give them £45 a week benefits.
Free food.
And they're on the streets.
Is it a minibar?
Yeah, well that's probably one of the reasons they're protesting. The minibars run dry. So they're on the streets protesting about this. So my basic point is this. If you don't like the free hotel we put you in, why don't you go to another hotel and pay for it yourselves? How about that?
That's a good idea.
Unbelievable.
Well, luckily, the reason we found out about this was because our very own Richard Tice, who was on this show just last week, found out about this, because I see them as kind of in the forefront of the union movement, because I think what they did was they looked around, they saw Mick Lynch from the RMT,
Yes, right.
they saw the teachers,
Everyone else
they saw
is
the
on
NHS,
strike.
they went, why don't we just go on strike and see how that goes?
You know, Mike, that's a very serious point, because people say that migrants are only coming for a better economic life and they don't really identify with the British identity. I think, sadly, these migrants have identified
They've been here for
with
2
British
years and now
identity
they're going
too
on
much.
strike.
They're
Well, let's have a look.
looking just for oil, aren't they?
Richard Tice went down to talk to one of them, and here's what happened.
Well, here we are. I'm standing outside the Comfort Inn on Belgrave Road in SW1 Pimlico, the centre of London.
Here's very bad.
Here's very bad, in the centre of London. Room's very small. Bathroom too small?
Yeah, too much.
I'm so sorry about that. That's really shocking that the bathroom is too small. But do you get nice food here?
Yeah, food is bad.
Food is good. So you're happy with the food? That's nice. Or maybe we'd get you better food. Would you like better food?
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. Food's okay.
I mean, it really is extraordinary.
I've worked out that guy's called Diop. Right? He revealed to Richard he's been here 2 years. The government's paid for him every step of the way. You talk about these people looking for a better standard of life. They're looking for a free standard of life, cheaper standard of life, because we pay for everything. Anyway, I worked out that he alone, bearing in mind he's in a hotel there with about 50 of his compatriots, he alone, over the 2 years he's been here, will have cost us about £125,000. Now, there are something like 100,000
170,000 people
all over the country who are the same as him. They're costing us each 60 grand a year.
And
it's ridiculous.
It's not just us that it's costing as well. It's all of the little businesses around.
Yeah.
You know, the flower shops that deal with weddings and those sorts of guests, the tourists. You know, I have sympathy. I've been to a hotel room in London, you know, central London. They can be quite small.
I've stayed in some pretty
small.
pokey
4 men
hotels in
together.
my time.
I can imagine the
I'm in
bathroom
one
can
today,
get quite...
But I've paid for them, though.
Can get quite sniffy, but...
You know.
Yes, I have to pay it.
Yeah.
But I think
No,
you said it
150
yourself
quid.
there. If it's 18 months to 2 years that these people have been in these hotel rooms, what on earth are we doing? Speed that process up. It shouldn't be paid for that long.
And the caveat, the final infuriating element of this saga is the migrant protesters, the Pimlico protesters, won.
Yeah.
Because one of their complaints was they're making us sleep 4 to a room. So it was negotiated that they would go down to 2 people a room. And better still, they agreed to get engineers in to fix the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, but even better than that.
Victory!
They managed to get victory not only for themselves, but for others, because Rishi Sunak, when he was making his little speech down in Dover this week, actually said that they were going to ask the migrants if they wouldn't mind sharing rooms. So if they wanted to.
So they're successfully
I think it's embarrassing.
into the British culture.
Exactly.
They're young men, they're strong men, and they're acting like their Wi-Fi is a dummy. What, babies?
I know, they really
also,
are.
You know, it made me laugh that their room's too uncomfortable to sleep in, but they said they'd sleep on the streets for a month if they have to.
Yeah.
So the absolute
Go right
joke
ahead.
and the insult to British British
should have just
homeless
locked the
people
doors.
that they said they'd rather sleep on the street
Yeah, go on,
than in
then.
a hotel room.
Yeah, wait till it rains, see how you get on then. Anyway, time for your next one, Laura.
Right, my next one is the Dame of Plankery. Okay, Jacinda Ardern. She's been
Don't talk to
awarded.
your neighbours.
She's been awarded a damehood, and she didn't describe it as an honour because she wouldn't want to describe it as an honour because she's a
There's the teeth.
socialist and a Republican. She described it as an acknowledgement. I think this leaves a very bitter taste in the mouth because what's she really being acknowledged for? She imposed strict, cruel lockdowns for 2 years on her country. There were
You couldn't even go there, could you?
Overseas
The
citizens.
Hermit Kingdom.
Yeah.
Overseas citizens of New Zealand couldn't fly back,
Right.
not even to hold the hands of dying loved ones. She also mandated the COVID jabs for healthcare workers, teachers, soldiers, police officers, which is an absolute slap in the face for bodily integrity and informed consent. And not only that, it's a jab which didn't actually stop infection and transmission. So, as a Republican and a socialist, she said she was in 2 minds about accepting this acknowledgement, but she has. I think that the British
it's funny how
honour
when you're in
system-
2 minds about whether to accept something or not, you always accept it. They always accept it.
They always do.
They never turn it down,
Of course
do
they do. But the British honour system should be about something really honourable. I think not only does this let down British people, but it actually undermines the monarchy. I'm not even a monarchist.
Can she go in the House of
King
Lords?
Charles recommended.
Can she go in the House of
the
Lords
thing.
now with this?
That's no.
You sure?
But the thing is, it's another example of the elites looking after themselves.
Yeah.
You know, Tedros, what's his name, from the World Health
Oh, yeah.
Organization, congratulated
Tedros
her
Ghali, I call
on
him.
her cooperation during the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
But what she really did was she injected her country with authoritarianism. She injected them with CCP-style authoritarianism.
Right.
She doesn't deserve an honour for it. She won't even call it an honour.
And then she had
I tell you what,
nothing
I'm
left in the tank.
Harkening back to the days when we gave David Cameron's hairdresser an honour.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought we'd reached terrible
He did have
lows,
nice hair,
but it's
mind
got
you.
worse.
He did have nice hair. That was one of the best things about him.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at Jacinda Ardern, because this is her rather emotional speech when she decided to step down.
Now, I cannot determine what will define my time in this place, but I do hope I've demonstrated something else entirely. That you can be anxious, sensitive, kind, and wear your heart on your sleeve. You can be a mother or not. You can be an ex-Mormon or not. You can be a nerd, a crier, a hugger. You can be all of these things. And not only can you be here, you can lead just like me.
She gives me goosebumps. She's so
What's she wearing?
awful.
What's she
Was it like
wearing?
ostrich outfit?
Looks
or
like a
something?
straitjacket. Maybe that's what she should have had on.
Do you know
Anyway.
when people go to the dentist? A lot of people go to the dentist to have teeth out. She goes to the dentist and have more put in. How do you get all those teeth in that mouth?
We're running out of time here, basically, so I have to move on. Coming up in the next section, we're going to be looking at a charity that's overstepped the mark, and also a Scottish minister who looks a bit odd. This is Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. I tell you what, we're getting through some planks today, I have to say. Donald MacLeod is here. He's visiting from Scotland, of course, and so you've got a Scottish minister for us that a lot of people here might not be too familiar with. So tell us who it is.
Well, I love the sound of breaking glass. famous for Nick Lowe
Yes.
many years ago. But however, the sound of breaking glass is not a sound that Lorna Slater, the Circularity Minister for Scotland, will like at the moment.
Circularity?
The Circularity
What does that
Minister.
mean?
Well, it means she just talks round and round in circles.
I think that's his...
Sorry, I thought that was her official job.
She is the Circularity Minister. Lorna Slater, the Green Minister for Scotland.
That's even worse.
Part of the Scottish Government. And yesterday they basically had to admit that their fabled deposit return scheme on glass bottles and cans and plastic bottles is almost over.
Right.
Because of glass.
Right. And this is the scheme where you're supposed to take your bottles back somewhere and get money from a machine? Or
Yeah, you were meant to hand in or put through a reverse vending machine a plastic bottle or a can, you get 20p back for it. But the 20p was getting added on in advance to all the distributors, all the shops. So they were getting asked to pay this in advance. However, Scotland decided to be different from England and the rest of the UK, and they decided they wanted to include glass. 95% of glass is already recycled, so there was no need to do that. And businesses railed against her and railed against the Scottish Government, said we don't need this, this is a calamity, this is just outrageous. But they still spent 300 million.
300 million?
300 million on the Circularity Scotland department. And the boss of which, the CE, David Harris, gets 300,000 a year, which works out about 1,500,000 plastic bottles.
It's almost like they're all sitting up there going, here's what we can do. Do you fancy being the chairman of this?
Well, here's the good thing is that, you know, and I don't normally say this about the UK government, especially Michael Gove, but basically he's turned around along with Alistair Jack and said, no chance. One scheme for the whole of the UK, or you don't get, you're not going to be allowed to get your internal market approval, because French suppliers of wine, makers of wine, Australians, etc., hundreds of thousands of bottles of wine, we're going to have to get their own label, own barcode put on them just to go into Scotland, and they weren't going to do this. So thankfully, a bit of common sense was shown by the UK government. It said, no, you can go ahead with your cans and your plastic bottles.
But so Humza Useless, is Humza Useless going to challenge the
Well, hapless Humza Useless is, he was in charge of it, but it's Loopy Lorna. I mean, really,
I think we've got a little video.
Blaming the UK government. It's the UK government.
Well, they love doing that, don't they?
That's all they ever do.
We can't do this because of the UK government. This is a video that Lorna made before she was running for office, or when she was running for office, I think, to try and introduce herself to the Scottish people. She's just introducing herself to the public. That's what you would do, isn't it?
What's she coming for?
Listen, she's also the one that took the private boat.
Oh, yes.
Rather than the ferry to an island recently to visit the locals, and it cost the taxpayer £1,200.
She charged that to the taxpayer?
Yep.
When she could have got a ferry.
When it
a ferry for
15
just
quid
pennies.
Or something.
Yeah.
And she also took a train up to Aberdeen, fair enough, for an appointment up there, but made the ministerial car follow her all the way to Aberdeen and then took the car back.
It's great,
an empty car went up.
Yeah.
So this is the Minister for the Green Economy in Scotland. It's hypocrisy.
It really is.
No bounds here.
Unbelievable.
It really does.
Unbelievable. Let's talk about hypocrisy. Georgie, what have you got for us with the latest charity scandal?
Yeah. Do you remember when Oxfam was this great charity that did good work for global poverty? It wasn't embroiled in
They used to do those boxes.
sex scandals and all sorts of... I don't remember. No, I'm with you. I don't remember because it's been so long now and they've been embroiled in controversy, and it's one thing after the other. And the latest is they produced a video for Pride, which appeared, so it's been alleged, to depict a character in it with evil eyes that looks uncannily like J.K. Rowling.
That's the picture they use. So the woman in the middle who's wearing a badge that says TERF.
And TERF stands
for she's with the Gallagher brothers.
Exclusionary radical feminist, which J.K. Rowling has disagreed that that's what she is. It's been used as a slur.
And that's what she based it on, wearing a green dress. Right.
Of self-identifying gender. Oxfam took it down, they took out the turf, but it's already caused a huge amount of problems for them. Pride, again, I thought was supposed to be a time for celebration. I did not understand the video, watch it, it's still up in lots of different places.
We still have it, but...
To me, it just says, hug someone from the LGBTQIA+ community, watch it, and allow them to play sport. Why don't you go into the countries, Uganda, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, places like this, where those people from those communities are being murdered, are not allowed to function in society? Absolutely. That's what they should be focusing on as a charity to fight fighting global poverty, rather than spending donors' money. And I'm surprised they've even got any after what happened in Haiti. On things like this.
But is it? I mean, the clue's in the name, isn't it? It's Oxfam. It's fighting famine. Well, I mean, all these social causes. What's the LGBTQ community got to do with Oxfam?
Nothing. The people who work there now, it's like a cult's taking over them.
Yeah, but what is this?
The transgender community are discriminated against and leads to poverty, right? There are cases of that is true. They've also one of the things they did was produce a 92-page document for all their workers on how to identify people properly, etc. Again, another expenditure of people's donation money.
Let's have a look. We've got the actual offending clip. Let's have a look at it.
How are you marking Pride Month this year? While LGBTQIA+ people around the world are deprived of basic safety, not protected by laws, preyed on by hate groups online and offline, discriminated against at work.
I mean, what's really upsetting about that is they claim to be against discrimination, but they're inviting discrimination against women who want to stand up for sex-based rights, because that's what a TERF is, really. A TERF is a woman who believes sex is real and it matters and that women should have sex-based rights and space. So they're saying, well, don't discriminate against those people, but it's absolutely all right to discriminate against these women instead. It's boring.
But in the end, like Kevin said, it's Oxfam, it's a charity. They're supposed to be helping people in places where they've had natural disasters, famines and all of that.
Like Haiti.
Like Haiti. And we know what they did there and what they then did in Africa subsequently. But, you know, I'm pretty sure that when you go into a disaster zone and people are starving and suffering from dysentery and in need of rescue and in need of being airlifted places, they're not going to tell you what their pronoun is before they start talking to you, are they?
Well, I've been walking past Oxfam on the streets since
It's a massive organisation.
Since Haiti, because the crimes they were guilty of were really disgusting and abhorrent. And I'd rather give my money to different charity shops.
There used to be, I don't know what the figure is now, but not so long ago there were 18 people working at Oxfam earning more than £100,000 a year. 18 people on six-figure salaries. That's got to be wrong for a charity. They say, well, if we don't pay the big money, they'll go elsewhere. Well, good. You're a charity. People donate
but they won't go
not
elsewhere.
to make fat cats.
They won't go elsewhere. They'll go to another charity that will pay them a six-figure
make even
salary.
more money.
Yeah, because
if they were doing their job and what they set out to do, then fair enough. But they're paying them lots of money to not do that. We need charities like Oxfam to do the work they set out to do, and they're not doing it because they're wasting it on 92-page documents for their workers in the Maureen in the local charity shop.
No wonder they've made the list. Now, coming up, we're going to do something we don't normally do. We're going to talk about golf. Amazing. This is Plank of the Week. Welcome back to the very nearly last part of Plank of the Week. And, of course, we're going to have to choose who's going to be the winner. And there's an awful lot of good ones this week, I have to say. But here's mine, my final nomination. Guys, I'm going to do something that I don't normally do. I'm going to put somebody who a lot of people really like in as Plank of the Week. And he's a golfer by the name of Rory McIlroy. Donald and I used to play golf together, so we know who he is. Georgie, you know who Rory McIlroy is.
I used to be a sports journalist, yep.
Laura, not quite so up to speed on the ways of sporting activity. But
I've had a little chat off air about this.
Good.
Now. I'm pretty up to speed on
And Kevin, of course, and I have spent time, I think, in a Spanish golf course. We played La Manga.
Yeah,
very good that was, in between drinking. Anyway, Rory McIlroy was offered, some of you might not follow this story, but the PGA, the American PGA, which is the sort of professional tour in America, was very upset because the Saudis decided they wanted to muscle in on golf and they wanted to start up effectively a new PGA, bankrolled by Saudi, playing golf in the Middle East, but also in parts of Europe as well. And it was seen very much as a rogue sort of, operation. And it was called the Live Tour, wasn't it? Yeah. And bankrolled by Saudi money. But they had so much money, and they basically asked for American golfers, British golfers, anybody on the US tour, if they wanted to come and join them. Rory McIlroy was one of those who refused to go. Phil Mickelson did go. Several others, Georgie, that you know. Lee Westwood went. Koepka went. Rory McIlroy was offered 300 million quid to go and play on this tour, right? And he made a stand and he said, I'm not doing it. It's against the rules of golf. It's against the etiquette of the American tour. He and Tiger Woods stood firm. They said, no, we're definitely not going to take the money. We're going to stay where we are. At one point, people were told they couldn't play in the Ryder Cup. If they joined the Live Tour, they couldn't play on the big American things like the Masters, the US Open, all of that. That was all getting a bit woolly. Suddenly, this week, out of nowhere, the PGA, who had been sort of daggers drawn against this other operation, just said, I'll tell you what, why don't we just go into partnership together? So now everyone on the Live Tour and everyone on the PGA Tour is all in one big happy family, and Rory McIlroy is going to have to play on the Live Tour for free when he was offered 300 million quid.
Wow. The only rank is the PGA here.
Well, you say that, but I mean, if you're Rory McIlroy, you've got to be feeling pretty stupid, because he made a stand. He said, I'm not on principle going to join these people.
And well done to him for that.
But now he's looked daft.
Hang on.
He looks daft.
Here's what he objected to. He objected to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia sports washing its own dreadful human rights.
But he's not going to stop
beheading gay people, things like that. So he made a stand about that. He said, I don't want to take Saudi Arabian money. It hasn't worked out well.
But now he's going to.
I don't think... Well, yeah, but I don't think he's plank of the week for that. No. Other golfers tried as well.
So the PGA have also been asked, the head of the PGA, I believe, will you have to compensate him? And they said, we will have to look at it. We'll have to look at it. So actually, it's the PGA may have to... So it's, again, it's the PGA...
I think it's Rory McIlroy, because, to be honest, if you offered me £300 million to do something and I ended up having to do it 2 weeks later for nothing, I think I'd be pretty stupid to say no.
I also think it's not just about sports washing. If you take a look at the IPL and what's the result of introducing the IPL compared to, what it's done to domestic cricket.
Yeah.
And what the players do, the way that the players are, giving nothing back to their counties. The IPL, the Indian Premier League,
welcome to the world of international sport.
It's all bang, whizzy, dancing girls. Yeah. It's sort of an abomination, I think, to cricket. And I think they see Rory McIlroy and people like that probably see Liv and the Saudi money and the bangs and the whistles and all that as an abomination to golf.
Here's one. He's walking up the theory.
I don't need to know about golf, but you don't take your money with you. Principles are more important.
Yeah, but in his case, the only way he can remain with his principles is now to refuse to play on the US tour.
He's going to get noised
that's what's going to happen
every time he picks his clubs up.
Exactly right.
Hey, Rory, where's that 300 million?
Now, listen, I'm not going to make him plank of the week because you're all complaining.
He's not exactly going to beat Prince Harry, is he?
Because I think there can be only one winner this week, I'm afraid. And I know it's my nomination again, but it's going to have to be Prince Harry. It has got to be. So here we are, Prince Harry. Well done, matey. Plank of the week. Sorry you didn't get to completely rework the media landscape, but maybe better luck next time. But we'll see you next week, of course. Coming up, it's Nadine Dorries, Friday night with Nadine. Thank you to Kevin, thank you to Laura, thank you to Donald, and thank you to Georgie as well. We'll see you next time for Plank of the Week.
It's time for That Was the Woke That Was.
The topical quiz show that goes through all of the wokest stories of the week.
She has been fame hungry from the get-go.
Saturdays at 9 on TalkTV.